Hello! Today I'd like to share with you what I discovered when I took the Quran in my hand. I'm a Christian pastor, and for me this book was completely new and I had the opportunity to discover it. So somebody gave me this book and I got several copies meanwhile. And I was very surprised to take this book because first it looks strange. I mean, if you look at that, first it's, I don't know if it's like this or like that, and it doesn't look something I can read. Well, of course everybody knows that's Arabic, but what is that Arabic? It looks like Chinese noodles and I cannot understand that. So I began to study a little bit of Arabic, and first I went on Wikipedia and looked at the Arabic script. And what did I discover? This is what I want to share first with you. So today we're going to look at some evidences, some facts that I found when I opened the Quran. First, it's written in Arabic, and Wikipedia tells me that there's an Arabic alphabet. Alphabet, what does it mean? A script, letters. And by the way, the English word alphabet comes from the Greek alpha, beta. And that's why it becomes very interesting, because the Arabic alphabet starts with Alif, Bet. So the same like in Greek. The same like in Hebrew, Aleph, Bet. The same like in Aramaic, Aleph, Bet, or even in Syriac, Aleph, Bet. You see, the sound is almost the same, which means to me that Arabic doesn't come from Jupiter or from another planet, but it's something similar to what I know, Hebrew, even Greek. So that's the first evidence I found. Very interesting. And then one day I was in the the National Museum of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And there's of course something about the Arabic script, and they told me, that's what is written, that the Aramaic script derived from Phoenician formed the basis upon which Nabatean script and eventually Arabic arose. In other words, the Arabic alphabet stems from Aramaic. Aramaic is the language of Jesus and became later on the Syriac. What my friends in the National Museum of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia didn't write is that actually the Arabic script is a simplified Syriac script. And the National Museum of Riyadh gives some samples, some copies of interesting Aramaic texts like this stela from the city of Taif in the north of Saudi Arabia, dated 8th century before Christ, or this one from the city of Tabuk, 6th century before Christ. Here we are in a city in Turkey directly on the border to Syria, a city called Nusaybin. This is where we have the oldest university in the world. And here there's a church, and we found this very beautiful Aramaic script, and if you look at that, most of you would say, well, that's Arabic, and in fact, you can almost read it if you read Arabic, but it's not Arabic, it's Syriac. This is the language of the first Christians after Christ in the Eastern Church. Then I have a friend in California, he has a big book about Arabic manuscripts. So I said, well, I have to open this book and look a little bit what they say about Arabic manuscript. And in this book, it is said that the Arabic alphabet is not found prior to the Quran. It's found only in two texts, two short manuscripts. It means that before the Quran, Muslims or Arabs didn't use the Arabic script. Only two texts are written in Arabic, and both texts are Christian texts. So, something interesting here. The Quran has a Christian alphabet, used by Christians before the Quran, simplified by Christians, and used as an alphabetic script by Christians before the Quran came. What does it mean? I don't know. I'm not a detective, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, I'm just like a policeman who gathers the evidence. It's not my role to say, so what? But I just want to give you that as piece of a puzzle. Another thing is that there's a very big book, actually it's 40 volumes, written by a man called Tabari, very famous in Islamic history because he wrote the whole story of Islam. Those books are called the Stories of the Prophets and Kings. And in volume 2, Tabari, starting actually with volume 1 with the story before the flood, Adam and Eve and Noah and so on. And then in volume 2, he started with the Tower of Babel. And he said that after the flood, at the time of the Tower of Babel, the universal language prior to the Tower of Babel was Aramaic, the language of Jesus. So some people would say Arabic is the language of heaven. Arabic is the language we have to learn if we want to get to paradise. Tabari says the language prior to the Tower of Babel, the original language of humanity, is Syriac or Aramaic if you want. Then listening to Islamic culture, to the Quran, to what I hear, to what I know, I discovered that many words used by Muslims are Christian words, like minaret. Minaret comes from the Hebrew menorah. I mean, I know Hebrew a little bit, and Aramaic and Greek. And minaret, menorah, same word. Whereas the Quran doesn't mention minaret. The minaret came much later in Islamic history. And what do you have on the minaret? You have a muezzin. Muezzin is a Hebrew word coming from mezin, which we have lots of time in the Psalms. Psalms, by the way, called in Hebrew mizmor, which gave the Arabic zabur. Interesting thing is the pronunciation of many Arabic words. Words in the Quran like Allah, even Allah, the way people pronounce Allah is not typical Arabic. The al doesn't exist in Arabic. Rahman, Rahim, something you don't use in Arabic. I know we'll talk later about Allah. Is Allah the same God like the God of the Bible and so on? That's a big topic. We're going to talk about it, so don't worry. But just to realize that the sound Allah is not typical Arabic. And it brings me to something I try to do. I just put some text of the Quran, Arabic text, into Google Translate. I wanted to see how Google Translate translates the Quran. And I was amazed that many texts didn't come out. Google cannot translate many texts of the Quran. And Muslims will be happy about that because many think and say that no, the Quran is a book that cannot be translated. What you have in English here is not a translation, it's just an adaptation, it's a commentary. Yes, it's true that it's difficult to translate the Quran and Google cannot do it, but the reason is why. And what I found out is very simple. The Quran uses a lot of Hebrew and Aramaic words that I know from the Bible. So in other words, we can say that the Quran is full of borrowed words. Actually, the whole theology of the Quran is based on Aramaic words. What does it mean? Well, in every language, we have borrowed words. Words that come from another language and come into English, and then many times they get a different meaning. The meaning changes. So what happened is that when you read the Quran, you have Aramaic words, and my impression is that many people who try to translate the Quran do not know how to translate those words. So knowing Aramaic and Hebrew, I discovered, for example, but it's not just a discovery, there are books about that there's no obligation for the woman to wear a veil. The word that is translated here with veil in the Quran is a different word in Aramaic. Oh yes, the Quran says we have to be modest how we dress, both men and women, by the way. But the Quran doesn't say you have to wear a veil or a scarf. In the same way, there's something for men who believe that when they came to paradise as martyrs, they would have a lot of virgins taking care of them. It's not in the Quran. It's just a wrong translation of two words that in Aramaic, in the Bible or in the Quran with different meanings. So we could go on and just discover that the Quran has a lot in common with the Bible. That's my point for today. The Quran is not something that comes from another planet, but it is very similar to what I know from the Bible in terms of language. Later on, we'll talk about the theology of the Quran. But what I just wanted to do today is to give you an appetite, you know the Bible, to read the Quran to discover what I discovered, and you Muslims who don't know the Bible, but you know the Quran, to discover the Bible with the Quranic eyes. Thank you very much. See you next week. We'll continue the topic. There's a lot more to say.